Ta-da!
Welcome to This Mystic Life podcast, a podcast that aims to look at the world differently, with total responsibility for sight. In this episode of the podcast, we take a look at Christopher Nolan's new movie, The Odyssey. Now, it's not just the Odyssey, the epic poem, but it's also a little Iliad thrown in there for good measure, and allusion to other well-known stories and epics of the time. Some places Nolan pads out some of the characters a little, but it's pretty true to the original story. What is different is not that Nolan is trying to hit us over the head with a new age meaning or metaphor. It's not a total hijack like people were afraid of based on the casting and the characters. It's actually more nuanced, and it is a coming of age tale where there's a healthy dose of self-doubt in our self-concept and our own cleverness. And for that reason, it may be worth watching. So I'll let you have a look for yourself. Here's what I have to share. Well, there's one thing for sure. If there is to be a future for humanity, it cannot come from the minds of men. If they do not now reach out to their counterparts, there is definitively no future in which they can see themselves anew. Because unless you look into the mirror from which you were born and choose to see the innocence that was given to you as your birthright, you will fail forever to recognize yourself in your fellow man and woman, and in so doing never come home to your true identity and your true self. And Nolan, in this film, retells a tale of old, which he feels has been forgotten. The return of the king, the return of the father. And yet he leaves us with the hope to instead accept our exile and go into the west, chasing the setting and returning sun. And if we could, instead of going through these stories again and again and again, follow the female lead and accept our exile, we could at once be returning to the sun. The movie starts with an opening title that says, "A Time of Apparent Magic," a trick. And the trick that Christopher Nolan is playing throughout this movie is akin to the Trojan horse that signifies both stories of the Iliad and the Odyssey. And it is the idea that what you covet and desire as a gift is the very thing that will betray you. There's a scene at the start where the young prince is learning to fight, and his mentor says you can't defend with a perfect attack, that you must open yourself up, that there must be a vulnerability that's allowed that can encourage the seeming enemy to come closer, and there is where you can have your reckoning. And so the movie deals with many themes. It deals with the theme of the breaking of the fragile bond between men, and it has a lot about trust in oneself, trust of men you might be following, trust in your own integrity when nobody's watching you, or whether you have a lack of integrity and no follow through. It also deals with the law of Zeus a lot, which is being translated in a very simplistic manner here as do unto others as you would like them to do unto you, because they may be a god in disguise. You know, it's like the biblical Christ presence, and that which you do to the least of my brothers you do to me. And it also deals with structure, that structure is nothing without respect for their meaning. So there's a lot of allusion, and this is why everybody speaks with an American accent, to current world events. There's a parallel being drawn, and one of the biggest themes is that the movie shares that you violated all that's ever been sacred between people for a hunt, for a killing, for an attack, rather than anything, in terms of a fair fight or respectful games of war. It's a sense that a whole civilization who has not the moral high ground, but who has the force to be reckoned with, is using it without the moral means and follow through and dignity and respect for those that they are conquering. And one of the other themes is breaking Troy's control of the trading routes. So that symbolism is in there too. And that the Ithaca elders at a certain point have decided that Penelope, it's time for her to simply marry again. That they've no faith that the king will return. They've no trust that the dignity will be restored. And they just are going to pick amongst those males that have been left behind, who have been wallowing in their own inadequacies in a way. They aren't even striving against one another to win Penelope's hand in any strong or passionate way. There isn't even that fair-minded competition as regards Penelope. They are just hanging around drinking the king's wine and eating the king's food for up to 20 years, just waiting for everything to slide into the sea, just until the king just doesn't return, and then just take the spoils of war. There's nothing where there's an integrity where anyone is like, I could improve upon this, I could support, I could help, I could be kingly, I could be a leader. There's no such desire of the males that are left in the kingdom. And it's not alluding particularly to who got left behind, it's alluding to his own men. But the witch on the island, who changes the men into pigs, the sailors into pigs and the warriors into pigs, says, "Come, you know what I'm speaking of. You have seen this in your own men. Why would you trust them? Why would you trust them with women? Why would you send them up here to these undefended women?" And for me, that really tied in more to who he left behind, that he didn't leave proper care of the kingdom in the going out to be the hero and fight in the war. Even if you could say that he, didn't agree that the war needed to be fought and that the premise for the war being fought was weak at best and jealousy at worst, he also didn't attend to his own kingdom on departure so that it was left strong in his absence. His prince, the son, was only a baby, and his wife was young and beautiful, and she held that throne for 20 years. And so again, we have this idea of bad stewardship, that it's not really just that someone fecklessly went off to war and enjoyed the spoils of war and raping and pillaging and all of the traditional hero antics along the way. But there was reason for them to feel ashamed and coming back. And even though Nolan focuses on the shame coming primarily from what was done during war, I think in the more subtle subtext, and especially with the incredible performance actually of Matt Damon, when you see Matt Damon look upon the kingdom as he's left it, and him having just thinking that his good name and that everyone would just continue to respect that and that would be good enough. It would be as if his presence lingered 20 years after his body was long gone. And it really didn't. It didn't linger long at all. In fact, the takeover happened immediately, but that's because it was an abdication of true responsibility for where the stewardship ought to be. And even though we talk about Odysseus being the cleverest of Agamemnon's warring party, his cleverness and his trickery and his need to dupe people so that they appear innocent and conforming to the story, the kind of illusion that he's throwing at the world in order to get things to work out the way he wants, it's costing him. It's costing him trust and faith in the gods. And that's why we have this symbol of when he leaves Calypso, she says, you have never served yourself up to the sea. You must surrender and yield to Zeus and yield to the god of the sea as well, and see if they carry you home. It has to be their decision. You can't be using trickery and cleverness and traits of the ego to get you back home. It's the opposite. And so he comes home as a beggar. Christ was a beggar. He comes home as someone without identity, where there's nothing that can get hit, and he gets hit and kicked and met. And there's a beautiful contribution from Tom Holland of being the bright, ready, able-bodied young man who wants to take over sincerely, purely, so that there will be a steward of the house. You can tell he has absolutely got no designs of power, no designs of overthrowing his father, no desire. He just simply wants someone to be at the helm, stewarding and ruling the kingdom so that it can be taken care of. And it's coming from that very pure sense of service with him. He is not the most virile of young men. He doesn't look like he's a warmonger. He's not aggressive. He's not forceful. He's also open to doing what's smart and will work. And so he's very open and listens clearly to what his mother says. And she's been the monarch in situ for the last 20 years. And it points out that she got no recognition for it whatsoever either. Everyone just keeps saying, well, when will the man be home? And I think there are lots of jumping off points for discussion from this movie, especially for many people who might see it as a contemporary allegory right now. And also the theme that runs throughout the movie is that if you don't tell the stories of mistakes that were learned, then you'll forget the mistakes and you'll make the mistakes again. And it's like those who refuse to learn from history will repeat history's mistakes. And yet it's a bigger mistake. And I like the illusion that Penelope has when she says, why don't we just head to the west and chase the departing or setting sun? I'm not sure how she describes it. And it sounded like follow the Christ presence. And she's the devotee of Athena, and it's her pin that he wears that keeps him aligned with the goddess energy and the spirit of the law of Zeus, rather than the letter of the law, which is derived primarily from fear that his men experience. And therefore they're subjected to the fear of the law, or their seeming invulnerability in the law, but they're constantly fearful. So it's not true invulnerability. They're subject to the protection of Zeus, which is at best fickle. And so I feel that the movie is sufficiently interesting that if this is thematically something that having it explored through allegory would help the mind relax about contemporary issues where there's a similarity. It is a call to stewardship. It is a call to trust. It's a call to deep intimacy. It's a call to know thyself. It's a call to not be clever. And to look and see that cleverness has never brought you anything. And you can't outwit the gods. And why would you even try? And also all of the consternation and the, issues that people had with the casting of this movie at the start aren't in the movie. They're not problematic. They're actually perfect casting decisions. And they facilitate the story beautifully. They make perfect sense in the context of the actual story. And so our fear that we were going to be betrayed by Christopher Nolan, I feel, is unfounded. It was present for many people. And yet, the story doesn't address the needlessness of the entire endeavor. And it was needless. And there's an extreme, and this is just from because of when it was written, and not written but recounted, the story, the epic poem, the wisdom of the females. And Nolan tries to bring it in through the wisdom of Athena and her sense of presence, redirecting Odysseus throughout the movie. Yet the absence of a directing presence that's female, and I mean directing rather than light guiding, is one of the failures of the storytelling at this point in time and space, because there may be resistance to the thought of a female taking over, but that's only because the understanding of taking over is a male concept rather than a true understanding of a yielding to the feminine Christ presence and Sophia, the goddess of wisdom, and the awareness of what's important and eternal and true, and what's needful and what's not. And all of these games that in the movie men play and women are not party to. Women are displayed as witches at times, and therefore they have their own, trickery at hand, but it's only to survive the men rather than having its own issue so much. I can't recommend this movie myself as an awakening movie. I think it could be a cathartic film for people to see if these are issues that they're interested in or they want to talk with someone else about it. I don't really see that it offers answers. I think it's nice that people say you should remember your mistakes so you don't make them again. Do not project the error to time. Or the mistake will be in the past and there'll have to be vengeance in the future to, one-upmanship and an eye for an eye and the whole world is blind. But is there any value in this overall? Not really. I don't think so. There wasn't for me, except that I may be complete with this idea that movies can be utilized to bring my mind somewhere it previously wasn't by relaxing back and seeing a story. I'm not sure they have that on offer for me anymore. I feel it's perhaps been maxed, and the utilization, it's now can't be thematic for me at least, and it's totally highly individualized, though something could be perfectly intimate. Like I turned on and was given to watch Enola Holmes, which I had never seen, in the first season episode of it, whatever, it seems to be a movie, and it was wonderful, and it was like this perfect antidote to this film I'd just seen, which when I'm sitting in this, I think you call it an Xbox chair, which is so funny, and it's there shaking and vibrating to make you feel like you're on the boat. And I found it pretty much just an interference from really being present and actually in situ. I found it more of a distraction to, I have what you might call a very good imagination. I find it readily easy to walk in another's shoes or another storm. So it's just vital that this become a time where you say, well, what's helpful for myself, Holy Spirit? Myself as I experience myself to be, because it's a very intimate moment that we find ourselves in right now. It's actually not generic. It's exactly what they teach you in art college when they say that which is most personal is most universal. And so I would really encourage everyone to find that intimate gap that exists between you and God and reach out and touch faith and look to make the connection where there seems to be a gap, or where there's this idea that, well, yeah, that's always present, I can always do that, but first let's get the mortgage paid, or yes, let's just get the children raised and let's get them off to college, and wait, when they're 18 and they're able to take care of themselves, I don't know whose idea that was, then I will begin my life with God. And really that's a guarantee that it will never happen. Really just put everything to one side. Whatever's before you right now that seems so important, and make God as important as your next breath, and knowing thyself as immediate. The immediacy of salvation, the potency of that. And without there being a sense of urgency, a sense of timeliness, now is good. Now is really, really good. And there's never been a better time. So there's no need to have regrets or project the error to time and look back over your life and saying, oh, I'm so whatever age now, I wish that I'd ... fill in the blanks. Now is good. Now is not only good enough, but it translates forward and backwards and changes the perception of experience. If you embrace that new shift in identity now, that new experience of being understood, and that profound knowing of yielding to our identity in Christ, rather than trying to logically or cleverly understand the workings of the world. It's really time to exit Plato's cave, people. Time's up, and now is good. Really is. And it did, this movie, tip me into an energetic feminine orientated feeling of timing also, but I feel that's a separate podcast, so stay tuned for that one. Watch this, don't watch it. I wouldn't be rushing out to see it. I didn't think it was that cinematic. I could easily have watched it on my computer screen and felt the same. It's very much traditional war style, masculine fighting, and probably my least favourite or least cinematic in my mind of the Christopher Nolan films. The others have left me gobsmacked, gut punched, and blown away in my mind. And so that was not my experience of this. I was, however, highly energized, clearly focused on myself, and ready for a whole new world. So, served perfectly, no doubt. Much love to you all. Ta-da!